Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. So, it's been a little over 2 months now since the Boosty Course Pass was finished. And it's safe to say that it was definitely a fun time while it lasted. Even if, in retrospect, it could have been way better. The visuals were lacking for the most part, a lot of the remakes had weird decisions, but on the whole, it was an incredibly fulfilling experience, playing a couple of retro tracks as well as experiencing several of Kart Tour's tracks for the first time. And so I thought, why not predict the next game in the series now?
Isn't it a bit early? They haven't even announced the next console yet.
I knew you'd say that. Now yes, while that is technically true, the reason for this video is a bit deeper than that. You see, back in 2015, shortly after I got Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, this was when I discovered Mario Kart 9 predictions on YouTube, and believe it or not, that was actually where my interest in making YouTube videos started. Sadly, I was a bit inexperienced back then, but now that it's relevant again, I wanted to have another go again. Even if it will be a bit different. So yeah, with all that being said, let's begin this new video series, where we will be predicting Mario Kart X.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Really? Anyways, in the first part of this series, we'll be going over the retro tracks, as tradition goes. Unlike my previous predictions on this channel, this one is going to be much more free. With the Boosty Course Pass, we had to restrict ourselves to what data mines were saying, but since this game hasn't even been announced yet, there aren't any official rules I have to go by. So in a way, maybe this is less predictions and more my personal wish list for the game, but yeah, I'll just have to make up the rules myself. Perhaps the most important question is, what retro tracks would be allowed to come back? Back in 2015, there was always a lot of pressure to predict courses that had never been remade before. But well, both of Mario Kart 8's DLCs had a pretty even distribution of recurring and brand new retro tracks. And that's also depending on how you view Mario Kart Tour. And some games like Mario Kart 64 and Mario Kart DS barely have anything to pick from now. So you know what, I'm not gonna be too strict on that either, even if I'll mostly focus on tracks that haven't been remade before. That said, I'm also gonna make it clear that I will not include any retro tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe already. Nitro tracks? Sure, I guess, but the retro tracks? Come on, we're all familiar with them now anyways. It's time for something else to share the spotlight. But yeah, I think that's all of the rules I'll be setting, so with all that being said, let's start off with the Shell Cup. This game's retro selection will be opened up by GBA Peach Circuit. A bit of a random choice perhaps, but it's a pretty simple and easygoing track that would suit well as a first impression. More importantly though, this track also got a huge makeover when it was remade for Mario Kart Tour. In general, this game is infamous for oversimplifying nearly all of its GBA remakes, but this is one of the few ones that actually got improved with the new elevation changes and backdrop. And as we all know, Mario Kart Tour isn't gonna last forever. And it does almost feel like this course was created for a bigger purpose, so that's why I think it will start off the Shell Cup. Moving on to the second track, we're going back to Mario Kart 8 as we rush through Sweet Canyon. This isn't a track I particularly enjoy, but realistically speaking, I think it would be a fitting follow-up. It's more unique than Peach Circuit, but it's still an easy and joyful track for the Shell Cup. But that joy won't last forever, as we soon have to find our way out of DS Luigi's Mansion. Like the previous two tracks, this one is also pretty easy in difficulty, but a darker and spookier tone will provide a contrast, so that the Shell Cup has some variety. And lastly, 3DS Woohoo Island Loop will provide a satisfying conclusion to this game's Shell Cup. For those who have been living under a rock, this was the first course that had you driving through 3 sections, rather than 3 laps like normally, and this allowed for the track to be much bigger and have more going on. Nowadays it's not as special since multiple tracks have since adopted this style, but it still holds a special place in my heart, and it would make for an optimistic final track here. It's still rather easy and has a mellow atmosphere, but it's definitely a bit more ambitious than the tracks above, with the alternating paths and even light traffic. And that's my Shell Cup. Maybe not the greatest selection of tracks, but it is the beginner cup after all, and considering how poorly our Shell Cups have been received, I'd say this would be the most memorable one so far. Next up, we have the Banana Cup. As tradition goes, this would be another rather easygoing cup, albeit with a slight difficulty increase. And what better way to open up this cup than with 3DS Shy Guy Bazaar. This was always one of my favorite Mario Kart 7 tracks growing up. It's just so soothing to stroll through the bazaars at night. And I think it could be a decent first impression, before we head on to the more crazy tracks. But we can't all have fun. Because next up is the obligatory Mario circuit. Obviously, we gotta have at least one of them. even if the last game already had like 4 of them, but hey, surely there's a Mario circuit that wouldn't disappoint me, right? Well, perhaps there is. SNES Mario Circuit 4 is the only Mario circuit from the first game to never have been remade, which is a bit of a shame because it's also the only one I think is particularly good. Compared to the other ones, this one just has a more interesting layout, with generally more twists and turns, and while it may not have a big jump like the second one, I still feel like this one would benefit the most from a crazy GBA style glow up. Maybe raise the elevation from this point on. Whatever the case is, I think this track has potential to be really great, assuming Nintendo put in the effort. Don't screw up like you did with Mario Circuit 3. Luckily, the next track would be quite impossible to screw up. Toad's Factory for Mario Kart Wii. Only the single most requested course ever to return. How this track still hasn't been remade, even with 11 other Wii tracks in 8 Deluxe now, is beyond me, but hey, perhaps this will be its time to shine. It may be a pretty simple track, shape-wise, but it's more creative than most courses could ever hope to be, and it would be a reasonable fan favorite to have early in the game. And lastly, capping off the Banana Cup would be the only Mario Kart 64 track to have yet been remade, Wario Stadium. Honestly, I'd be incredibly surprised if we didn't see it return. I can see why they've held out on it for so long, considering its brutal length and lack of hazards, but it's still an iconic course that deserves a second chance. The big jump could become a gliding section, all of the fun little bumps would now be trickable, and the track itself could be shortened to 2 laps. Oh yeah, and maybe change the time of the day to sunset. All things considered, I believe this could be an epic finale to the Banana Cup. And that's the first 2 cups completed already. Next up is... not the Leaf Cup actually. It's the sponsor of today's video. Okay, but no, I'm not actually gonna talk about the Leaf Cup. Not yet at least. You see, I'm gonna make the bold prediction that the next Mario Kart game is gonna have 5 Retro Cups instead of the usual 4. See, the thing is, obviously we're not gonna be able to go back to 96 tracks like in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But at the same time, I feel like it would be a bit underwhelming if we went back to the usual 32 tracks now. So why not compromise with 40 tracks instead? That way, it doesn't feel like a total downgrade at least. But yeah, this new Retro Cup is gonna be between the Banana and Leaf Cups, and I'm gonna call it the Plant Cup. I wonder why that is. Enough about that though. Bottom line is, it's gonna be a cup that's neither too easy nor too hard, and it will be opened up by... Remix Vanilla Lake 2.
What?
So, when most people think of Mario Kart Tour, they probably think of the city tracks and the numerous nitros. However, there is another batch of courses that originated from this game as well, the remix tracks. They're basically modern takes on the classic Super Mario Kart course themes, and while they may not be super impressive, I think it's worth preserving at least a few of them before the game shuts down. And Remix Vanilla Lake 2 is arguably one of the better ones. Sure, it's just a figure 8, but it's still got a lot surprisingly. Regardless, better than that though is GCN Mushroom City. This is a track I'm genuinely surprised hasn't been remade yet, and the fact that it may have been planned and then scrapped for the Boost Course Pass does make me a bit sad, but perhaps they just wanted to save it for the next game. It's definitely one of the tracks that make you feel the most like you're in a city, with the bustling traffic and multiple pathways, and it would be a relaxing first dip into the more difficult tracks. Because next up is Wii Dry Dry Ruins, the only Wii track in Mario Kart Tour to not have been ported to the Booster Course Pass. And it's not really surprising why. It's just so unbelievably ugly and cramped up in that game. Better to wait until a new game where it can shine in its full glory, because this track deserves better. And the last track is, yeah, you guessed it, it's Piranha Frickin' Pipeline. Or as I'm gonna call it, Warpipe Canyon. How did they screw up the English name so badly? But yeah, this really shouldn't come as a shock. I still can't believe that out of the 21 Tour original tracks, they decided to leave out just one from the Booster Course Pass. And that actually makes me sad. And it's not just because I love Mario Kart Tour. Sure, this may not be the most impressive course at first glance, but it's still a wild ride that's now unplayable for 50 weeks of the year. But hey, maybe they just wanted to save it for the next game. Regardless, in my opinion, this would be an absolutely frantic finale for this cup. And that's the Plant Cup finished now. Now we can talk about the Leaf Cup. And just between us, but of the 5 cups I've come up with in this video, this would probably be my favorite one if it were to be a reality. Partly because we will be opening up with one of my favorite courses of all time, GCN Wario Coliseum. And now yes, on one hand, this might seem a bit repetitive when we already have Wario Stadium, especially since that would also likely only have 2 laps. But you know, maybe it's just the copium speaking, but are they really that similar? I mean, Warrior Colosseum is arguably way crazier, with way more big jumps, and a somewhat different aesthetic taking place in this huge cage. So yeah, I think we can cram in both of them. Even if I also just really want to see it deep down. Same with N64 DK's Jungle Parkway. It may have already been remade once for Mario Kart Wii, but honestly, I can never get enough of it, and I want to see it again. The gorgeous yellow sky and river, the scary bridge, and above all, I would love a remix that actually has a melody instead of just a bunch of random jungle noises. Like that's ever gonna happen. Above all though, I just think it would be kind of sad if there was only one N64 track in the game. In between the other 15 tracks, I feel like this one just has the most potential for another remake. Following that though, we're gonna step up the game with GBA Bowser Castle 4. Just like with Mario Circuit, this is the only Bowser Castle from Mario Kart Super Circuit to not have been remade yet. Or well, technically it was a remade from Mario Kart Tour at least, but it doesn't really bring this track justice. It was a very particular kind of remake that only worked for that game, as much as I loved it. But I want to see it in its full glory, going all out on the anti-gravity perhaps, but most importantly, keeping the original skybox. The weapons of mass destruction just sitting in a corner always made for a kind of scary track to me. And lastly, we would be capped off with DS Airship Fortress. The good version, that is. Mario Kart Tour's version decided to add a bunch of lava below, which completely ruined the vibes for me. No, what I want from Airship Fortress are the ominous purple clouds again, high above any trace of civilization. Perhaps add a harsh and grueling wind as well, to truly give off the feel that you're above the clouds. That way, it would no doubt be an intense finale before we move on to the game's final cup, the Lightning Cup. The epic finale. Well, except the time we ended with Yoshi Circuit, and open up with Mario Circuit, and ended with the worst Rainbow Road. But yeah, it's the Lightning Cup. Now, how can it be best ruined this time? I know, with the second worst Rainbow Road of course. Okay, let's put our foot down now. Come to think of it, I haven't predicted another Wii U track since the Shell Cup, so let's pick another one. How about Super Belt Subway? To be honest, I don't have much of a reason for picking this. I just thought it could be a nice opener to the final cup, since it's pretty difficult, but not as crazy as the other courses I have in mind here. And also because it's one of my favorite courses of all time. Afterwards, we will venture back up to the surface and go even higher as we make a last ditch at 3DS Woohoo Mountain Loop. Yeah, obviously, it would be pretty weird if we only had one of the Woohoo tracks rather than both. Especially because this one is also way better. That huge gliding section at the end is one of the greatest moments in Mario Kart history, and it would definitely be one way of letting the player know that we're now approaching the end game. Next up, coming in as the game's penultimate track, would be a Bowser Castle. So, originally I wasn't too sure whether to put this or Mountain Loop in this spot, but you know, since the Boost Course Pass also had a Bowser Castle as the penultimate, I feel like it's gonna be common tradition now. And this time, I think it will be GameCube's Bowser Castle. Not only is it arguably the most requested one to return, but I also feel like its atmosphere would be the most distinct one from the other Bowser Castle I predicted. This one has always been known for being more ominous than chaotic, and that way would serve as a nice contrast to Bowser Castle 4. Which brings us to the final course, a Rainbow Road obviously. Which one though? Well, I think we all know. Obviously, it's going to be Remix Rainbow. No, but seriously, no Rainbow Road deserves a remake as much as GBA Rainbow Road. And it's not just because it's my favorite one of all time. This could be absolutely insane if given a proper glow up. I mean sure, they'd probably nerf a lot of the shortcuts, but still, there's so much you could do with it, and not just with elevation changes. Imagine if we could perhaps drive through the castle in distance. It wouldn't have to be more than 5 seconds, but just the idea itself would be so beautiful, especially if it would be at the end of the track, concluded with a gliding section. But yeah, overall, those are my predictions. For the retro tracks, I think we could see from Mario Kart X.
Albert Boring. You're setting yourself up for failure. 5 cups? Seriously? This is what it will really look like.
Of course you have to add your opinion as well. Wait, seriously? You didn't put Piranha Plant Pipeline in it?
Oh, don't be silly. We will get it, but it's gonna be marketed as a Nitro course instead. After all, there's a reason Ninja Hideaway and Piranha Plant Cove don't have a prefix in the Booster Course Pass.
I mean, I guess that could happen, but that's a story for another video, which we might talk about soon enough. In the meantime, what are your predictions? Did you agree with me or not? Like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And make sure to follow me on Discord, Patreon and X.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Oh, shut up! Anyways, with all that being said, I'm signing off. Until next time.